So Donald Trump's poll numbers are absolutely crashing. He's facing so many questions regarding the Epstein situation. And what does he do? He runs away. He's actually in Europe now, and these are the headlines in Scotland. Convicted U.S. felon to arrive in Scotland. Republican leader who was found liable for sexual abuse and defamation will visit golf courses. And yes, this is an actual headline coming from Scotland. This is the National. The editors even made a statement about this.
Supporters of Donald Trump are very angry at our front page this morning, but we have a challenge for them. Which part is factually inaccurate?
So that was the question. Which part is factually inaccurate? As you guys know, it's all true. And this is what's up. I didn't realize Scotland was this cool. If you guys are in Scotland, please let me know. Evidently, 71% of Scots don't like Trump. That was reported in the Wall Street Journal according to a poll by Ipsos. This is Trump landing now. And yeah, there he is. And this National even had more to say. Our viral front page today was very simple. We told the facts about Trump, a man who doesn't like facts. Again, convicted U.S. felon to arrive in Scotland. And I was thinking about how Trump is always complaining about trade deficits. And I'll just say this, the biggest trade deficit that the U.S. has versus the rest of the world, essentially USA exports corruption like no one else. And I'm trying our best, and we're trying our best to correct this deficit. So I apologize for the export of corruption. But this is Trump here. He's actually talking about windmills in Europe. Get this.
Well, I say two things to Europe. Stop the windmills. You're ruining your countries. I really mean it. It's so sad. You fly over and you see these windmills all over the place, ruining your beautiful fields and valleys and killing your birds. And if they're stuck in the ocean, ruining your oceans. Stop the windmills. And I mean, there's a couple of things I could say, but on immigration, you better get your act together. You're not going to have Europe anymore. You got to get your act together.
All right, so that's from Trump. He arrives in Europe, tells you to get your act together, stop the windmills, stop immigration. And I'll be honest with you guys, windmills are awesome and immigration is awesome. So there's that. And regarding the windmill situation, actually my wife and I, we were just in Europe and we talked about visiting the Netherlands for the Tulip Festival. Hopefully next year or sometime in the future. I hear it's fantastic. I haven't seen it for myself, but don't think all Americans hate windmills. In fact, I want to go see the windmills, and I wish America had more windmills. And something that I was really impressed when we were in Paris, how there was a lot of walking, biking, public transportation, essentially just a push to have clean air and a clean environment, which I think matters. And I even saw, just talking about France here, I even saw maps, which I showed you guys before on the channel, where they showed like this was Paris air when all these cars are running in the city, and then this is Paris air after they blocked a bunch of streets and basically made it more pedestrian friendly. And it was like night and day. And so, hey guys, if you can have power and a couple things, generate more clean energy and power, say through windmills or solar, these kind of things, and then find ways to decrease consumption by designing buildings better and planning communities better. Absolutely fantastic. So don't think everyone is like Trump and hates on windmills or immigration. That's not the case. This actually is interesting as well. I talked about this in yesterday's video and I turned out to be correct. Trump seems to be in town just for his golf course. I think he's naming after his mom or something. But the idea though is he's trying to get this big tournament at his golf course, and I think he's trying to get the UK Starmer to help him with that. People are against it, so it's not just me. If you're in Scotland, you may know about this issue. 1,000 signed petition to stop Turnberry hosting the Open. That's Trump's Turnberry. It's the big golf course thing there. This is what it says. The RNA, the organizers of the Open Championship, must not allow Donald Trump-owned golf courses, including Turnberry, to host any upcoming Open Championships. The Open Championship must not give in to the UK government's lobbying, and I think that's due to Starmer, and allow Donald Trump to host one of the world's biggest, oldest, and respected golf tournaments at any of the golf courses he owns in the UK. And this is effectively probably had to do with the deal, or whatever you want to call it, agreement or framework or whatever, that he did with the UK. I'm sure this golf course stuff was involved with this, because remember, Trump is interested whenever he goes and negotiates with whatever foreign leaders he's interested in putting money in his pocket. So this is where I think it's all about the golf course situation. I also want to point out there are protesters in Scotland. So for example, this is one. The people are protesting and they essentially want a clean environment, clean air, clean water, and pushing for the plastics treaty. Actually, this particular issue came up in Busan, where I live, and we had a big conferencing. It is something that I wish we had talked more about in the world. We need to get rid of plastics, guys. Styrofoam, any kind of thing that is not great for the environment. So, we haven't come to, how can I say, consensus yet in the world that we need to get rid of said things, but that's why you have to keep bringing up the issue, and that's why I'm highlighting it. Negotiators failed to reach an agreement on plastic pollution treaty, talks to resume next year. And, this is something that I actually noticed quite heavily when we lived in Vietnam, my wife and I. And, you would walk around, and because there wasn't education, awareness, or infrastructure in place, there's just garbage everywhere in the waters, ground, etc. And, I'm using the example of Vietnam, but you can use any number of countries. Every country's going to be different on the various degrees of how they, treat this stuff. I'll give you an example also, say here in Busan. You go to like local McDonald's or Starbucks or whatever, they've changed the cups that they're using. They've eliminated the straws, any number of things. And that's just one example, but there's lots of different ways that we can come up with more sustainable ways to live. So I know we talk about Trump and what stupid thing Trump is up to, and he's against windmills, stuff like that. But you have to understand it's part of a larger picture. And, Trump is there to represent big energy, big oil, this stuff. And effectively, he wants Europe to change, your lifestyle and change your regulations. That's been part of the trade deals. And, I get it, right? It's all about lobbyist money. So he's there to represent oil and also himself. You also have this. Trump's trip to Scotland is mostly to visit golf courses. Where's the backlash? Asking, why aren't more people upset about this and knowing what's going on? This is what, good news is in education. Donald Trump will be visiting Scotland for 5 days, but he won't spend most of his time in high-level diplomatic meetings or conducting other state business. He's primarily visiting 2 of his golf course resorts and dedicating a new golf course named in honor of his mother, who was born in Scotland. In other words, Trump appears to be going on a junket paid for by U.S. taxpayers to check out his golf properties in a foreign country. And just imagine if, like, Biden or any of Biden's kids are doing this kind of stuff, the, meltdown that the Fox News would have. You guys know that. I mean, they get upset if Obama wears a brown suit. This is obviously something that you do want to know about, though. It's way more than brown suits. Wall Street Journal banned from Trump's Scotland trip over Epstein's story. And the Wall Street Journal, they keep going hard at Trump, which they should. Trump sued them, actually. I wasn't threatened, so he sued them, actually. And so that's why they've been releasing evidence. And then Karen Levitt made a statement of why they're banning the Wall Street Journal from this trip. 13 diverse outlets will participate in the press pool to cover the president's trips to Scotland. Due to the Wall Street Journal's fake and defamatory conduct, they will not be one of the 13 outlets on board. And, this kind of stuff, guys, it matters a lot that we have freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and be able to call these things out. Freedom of speech, which I'll get into in a moment here, is complicated, though, because it doesn't necessarily mean you have the freedom to just, make up whatever you want, etc. So there should be, sort of a culture and rules in place to where there is a sense of reality and truthfulness out there. And that's something I try to stress on this channel and have conversations with you guys about. I think it's important. And, it is something like this is a lot of it is, some stories that just aren't talked about enough in the USA, because oftentimes Americans, to be nice about it, just aren't so aware of what's happening in other countries. But I just want you to understand that, again, one of the USA's biggest exports is corruption, and Trump is like the representation of that. Why isn't he paying Trump's golf course visits cost Scottish taxpayers? And someone already mentioned in the community in Scotland that they were aware of this issue. It must be a massive issue because you guys are paying for it there, and I apologize for that. His visit requires major police operation that will cost Scottish taxpayers, so U.S. taxpayers have to pay, and Scottish taxpayers for this whole golf trip thing, millions of pounds, as protests are planned over the weekend. The union representing officers is concerned they are already overworked. So, right, police officers are I guess got to work overtime for this thing, and will be diverted from their normal duties, and some residents are not happy about the cost. Here's a local person saying, why isn't he paying for it himself? He's coming for the golf, isn't he? And that's coming from a protester in Edinburgh. And here's another quote, it's got nothing whatsoever to do with public money, either US or UK. This is also the actual, well, we don't know the actual cost, but this was in the past because they'll keep the cost secret today, but you know, a couple years from now, you'll probably get the real numbers. Policing for Trump's 4-day visit to the UK in 2018 cost more than 14 million pounds. That's about $19 million, according to the Freedom of Information Act. That includes more than 3 million pounds, so about $4 million, spent for his 2-day golf trip to Turnberry, the historic course and hotel in southwest Scotland that he bought in 2014. So what, we're in 2025, so 7 years later. Maybe the cost is double now, maybe triple even. So perhaps taxpayer dollars, you know, in UK, Scotland, maybe you're paying $60 million for Trump. What would be the estimate that, you know, that the US is paying to send Trump over there? You know, knowing Trump math, maybe it's another 100 million. So maybe, I don't know. I'm just, you know, something like that. Maybe 100 million total, that taxpayer money for Trump to do his golf course thing. And that's why you got to point this stuff out. And this would be a good example of, if anyone has information about this, you know, please share with us the exact cost of this stuff. And it's hard to calculate probably because there's so many different ways that he's, you know, gaming the system here. And you have to understand that the US system and the EU system is different, be it with energy, information, news reporting, etc. So for example, this was a big headline today, Meta to pull political ads in EU in response to new disinformation rules. So social media is getting stricter in the EU. So it's very different than USA. And I'm focusing on this and mentioning it because if you want real change among, you know, voters, among markets and politics, you want to create a system again where truth rules the day. And I understand though, if you know, effectively just make up stuff all the time, people actually want to watch that. That's actually the most interesting stuff, the stuff that's not true. And people are like, I want to click that. That's totally not true. And I know sometimes it's boring if I tell you guys the truth. And sometimes people get upset that we talk about the truth here. But the problem is if you focus too much on you know, stuff that's frankly not true, this is the society you get. You get Trump, essentially is what it ends up being. And again, USA is the largest export is corruption at this point. But let me read about this stuff because it is being blocked in Europe. Meta will stop running political advertising in EU from October, right? So coming soon, criticizing, quote, unworkable requirements. That's what Meta says, that's Facebook. Under a new European law designed to increase transparency in digital campaigning. And essentially you want, where's this money coming from, right? Kind of thing. On Friday, the social media giant said it would no longer allow ads related to, quote, political, electoral, and social issues. And that's Facebook and Instagram. I didn't see any statement from Elon Musk on this yet, but we already know Elon hates Europe. We already know that. And I think France, last time we checked on this, was considering really cracking down hard on Elon. There was even a criminal investigation on Elon and Twitter. So there's that. The move comes ahead of the full implementation of EU's, they're calling it the Transparency and Targeting of Political Advertising Regulation, with introducing conditions on how online platforms serve political content to users. So how does your algorithms work? It matters, right? Because again, algorithms sort of dictate what people are seeing, what people are watching, hearing, and sort of what they interact with. So, and you know, just the reality, if you watch my channel and I just literally just tell you guys what's going on in the most truthful way they possibly can, it affects your point of view. And now if you are used to watching Fox News all the time, which tells you tons of half-truths or purposely mislead you, this sort of thing, then, you know, it feels like you're living in two different worlds or an alternate reality. And if we actually had rules in place to where you can't just lie on the air, say on TV, which what Fox News does quite a bit, the world would change a lot. And I'll just give you an example. I've mentioned this before, I'll mention it again. I used to work over at the Busan radio station, and the rules are really strict over there, what you can or cannot say. And if you say something that, you know, effectively breaks the law, being a lie or, you know, misleading, or you too strongly give your opinion on things, they actually fine the station. So it's actually really quite serious, these things. Whereas, you know, in USA, they claim free speech. And this is sort of where it's like free speech to lie, free speech to make up stuff about people. And, you know, that's why in my opinion, we should change the laws on that stuff, or For example, Elon Musk would say, "Oh, I have free speech for false advertising," which again, I think we need to be stronger on those kind of laws, because I'm not for false advertising. I think that's a bad thing. But Europe, they're much stronger on this stuff. The regulation is designed to address concerns around information manipulation and foreign interference in elections. So that would be like Russia and China money, right? As well as processing of personal data for political advertising. And then you got this, which is also related. This is in USA, so some things do change on this stuff. And this is actually a really fascinating one. It has to do with ID checks on minors for accessing content on the internet. I know that Australia recently passed something. We talked about before on the channel. It's like, I don't know, maybe age 14 or something like that, where you have to, get adult permission to see certain kinds of content, that kind of stuff. And in the USA, it's going to be a state-by-state issue. So for example, I'll read this one. This is a really interesting case here. Meta clashes with Apple and Google over age check legislation. And the basic gist of it is who's responsible for children on the internet? Is it the App Store or the app itself? This is the argument they make, and it's fascinating. Meta supporters argue the app stores, that would be Apple, should be responsible for figuring out whether minors are accessing inappropriate content, comparing the App Store to a liquor store that checks patrons' IDs, right? So Meta is saying it's Apple's responsibility. Apple and Google, meanwhile, argue age verification laws violate children's privacy and argue the individual apps are better positioned to do the age checks. Apple said it's more accurate to describe the Apple Store as a mall and Meta as a liquor store. So, so the argument, who is the liquor store? What I'll say though, I guess, overall, you could look at if you want to use the same metaphor, you can think of the USA as being the liquor store, Donald Trump is the liquor salesman and trying to sell it all around the world and exporting said liquor. So we're trying to change, I guess, what the store serves in USA. And, you got to have a sense of humor about stuff. But this is actually real. These are actually real arguments that they're making. So anyway, that's what's going on. Trump's in Europe. Please do something about him if you can. I do appreciate your time, everyone. And I'll catch you all in the next video.